So we're continuing with the Hakdama of the Tikunei HaZohar. There's a very long Hakdama before we get to the actual Tikunim. As we said at the beginning, the Tikunim are 70 droshes on the word Bereshis. But there's a very long Hakdama which, as I've said, some people said the Tikunei HaZohar are almost a tamsis, a precise explanation of all the Zohar. So we'll continue. I just want to briefly remind us what we were saying, as I understand it. The Tikunim are now darshaning a verse, a pasuk, which deals with the Indian of Shiluach HaKet, sending away we want the eggs, right? You remember it says that you can't. It says that the mother, when she's on the chicks, or the eggs and on the chicks, right? You should have to send them away, but you shouldn't take the mother with the sons. So we said that in the drosha, the sod, the mother represents the Shechina. That's because the Shechina is the female aspect. And the Shechina is with Yisrael when we were in exile, right? We learned that. And the Tikunim are telling us that the sons were the highest level. We said there were 3 levels of people who learn Torah. The simplest level are the ones who just learn the Chumash without really much understanding. They're called the Beitzim, the eggs. And the next level are ones who learn Mishnayos, etc., but again, without really a depth of understanding. And they are called the Apuchim. So there could be a situation in which if people are only learning the simple aspects of the Torah without a deep understanding, then at a time of Golus, at a time of exile, so the Shechina can be separated. The Bonim, the sons, the Tikunim tell us, those are the people who learn Kabbalah. And they are not separated from the Shechina. Shechina is never separated from them, so that throughout the whole of Golus and exile, those who learn at that highest level maintain a relationship that the Shechina is not separated from the Jewish people. And now we're going rather deeper. Remember, we're talking about a collection of very high souls, right? The whole Sefer is written by a collection of high souls, which was Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Eliyahu Navi, and the Neshamas, the souls of all the very high angels, etc., who are burning. So they tell us that there are 6 levels, or 6 different levels, I should say, of these souls of the Chachamim who are involved with learning the Sefer. And the Tikunei listed them, and it listed them, we said that an order: Chasidim, Giborim, Maritor, masters of Torah, Chosim, visionaries, Nevi'im, prophets, and Tzaddikim, righteous. There's a question whether the Chosim, the visionaries, come before the Nevi'im, or the Nevi'im before the Chosim will come to them. So these 6 levels of neshamas relate to 6 spheres, 6 of the sphirot. The sphirot, the usual order of the sphirot is that the first 3, which are Keter, Chochmah, and Bina, are separate. They're called the 3 higher ones, and they're related in a way to the head and the brain. Because in the higher worlds, we have a conceptual aspect of a man. In all the higher worlds, there's a conceptual aspect of a man, not a, God forbid, a physical aspect, but a conceptual aspect. So as a man consists of a head and a body, so in the conceptual aspect, also the spheres are represented in that aspect, that there are the 3 higher spheres which represent the head and the mochim, the brains and the intellect, and then we have 7 below. So the 7 below are divided into 2 groups. The first one is 6, and then there's 1. So that therefore the spheres are 3 higher ones, and then a group of 6, and then at the bottom 1, which produces 5. And because you have 3, 1, 1, right? The 6 are 1. So therefore we have 5 clusters, if you could say, of spirit, which relate to the 5 partsufim, which we've learned before, which are also in an analogy of family in the heart. So the central body is the middle 6. We have the 3 in the head, and then we have the 6 in the body, and then we have 1 below. The 6 are often called vak, which means 12, which means 6, kuf is 6 directions. So those spheres are, remember that because in the world that we're talking about, we're talking in a conceptual term of a man. So a man consists of 3 lines, right? He has a right hand line, a central line, and a left hand. So again, these 6 spheres are related to that. The right hand is chesed, then we have the left is gvura, then we have the central is tiferes, then we have the right, which would be the right leg, let's say, is netzach, the left leg is hod, and then we have yesod, which is the foundation, which is the male organ, and then the 7th one, malchus, the last one, is the female. So that 6 are called in the parts of the Zar, which is a young or shorter face, and his companion, his female companion, the nukva. So why are we telling this? Because these 6 groups of righteous souls that are learning the Torah are compared now to the 6 aspects of the 6 aspects of the Zar, of the Zar Ampin, which is the man who's the main protagonist in the world of Atzilus, which is the higher world, which the Zohar is particularly concerned. So last week we talked about the Hasidim, right, which relate to Chesed, and now the Zohar, the Tikkunim, are now going to tell us, going through the rest of these aspects of holy souls who are learning with Rabbi Shimon and who are composing the Sefer and who are attached to the Shechina. Giborim are mighty men, although we said really it's a female aspect. The mighty ones, Misitra de Gvor. So these neshamas who are Giborim are related to the side of Gvor, which is, let's say, in the analogy of a man, the left arm. What? The din side. Yes, din, and very good. Because it says, the Yahavidi Tukfa lemarehen, because they give power or force to their master, the master being Zah. They give force or power to their master, likvosh eved tachat rabo, v'shifcha tachat giverta. They give power or force so that the likvosh, which means to push down, it's a krish, it's a word, right? They conquer or push down. The eved underneath his master, and the shifcha, the girl servant, tachat gevurta, underneath her master, her female, her mistress. So this is an analogy to who's the eved. The eved is, I don't like to say his name, Sami, right? The antagonist. He's the force, the male personification of the force of evil. We have the force of evil. There's various names, Malach HaMavis, the angel of death, etc. But usually he's called now by the name, I don't like to say his name, but like Sam, we could say his name, right? So he is the male force of evil. And his whole purpose is to try to draw nourishment from the Kedusha, from holiness, because evil needs to draw its nourishment from things which are holy. And I explained a very powerful example of this. I explained the other day. I saw, it's a book, famous book about the Second World War. I call it The 6 Days That Changed the World, I think. So he saw, very interesting, he says that they saw a sketch on Hitler Maximov's desk. And the sketch showed his army going east to Moscow, and his army, a North African army under Rommel, going east to Cairo. And in his sketch, when the European army got to Moscow, it turned south, and when the Northern African army got to Cairo, it turned north, and his plan was that they would meet in Yerushalayim. The whole, in other words, the whole force of evil which he represents was to come and conquer Yerushalayim. The whole force of evil wants to conquer Kedusha. It has to conquer Kedusha. It can't exist in a vacuum. It needs to conquer Kedusha. So the Eved wants to get on top of the master. And his mate, well, I also don't like to call her name particularly, but said Lillian, it's called, it's close to the name. His mate wants to conquer the female aspect of Kedusha. But when righteous men of the war and are masters and represent the power, so that gives power of the forces of good to conquer and put down the forces of bad, right? So therefore the Gevurah or the Gevurim who study Torah, the warriors who study Torah, are able to give power to their master. The master, the law of the master will conquer his Eved, and the mistress will conquer the Shifra, his mate. And how do we do that? Bakishur de tefillin, putting on tefillin. The putting on tefillin gives strength to the forces of righteousness to conquer these other forces. Because we have two tefillin, right, which relate to these forces. And then the Tikunei tell us, demand a leisle tefillin b'shas kriyas Shema. Someone who does not lay tefillin at the time of kriyas Shema, misitra dile sholet eved v'shifcha al alma. Because of this, the Eved, the servant, the slave, is able to rule over the master, and the Shifcha, the servant girl, is able to rule over the mistress. Extraordinary, right? Well, we're saying Kriyat Shema, all right, we don't have to tell them, but we are saying Kriyat Shema. No, if we say Kriyat Shema without tefillin, without the mitzvah, let's see, the left, shall we put it on the left arm, because that's Gevurah, the left is the left-hand side. So without the tefillin, when we say Kriyat Shema, it gives force and power to the other side, so that the Eved can conquer his Kovesh, his master, and the Shifcha, the mate can conquer her mistress. And that's what it says in Mishlei. It says, Tachat Eved ki yimloch, v'Shifcha ki tirash kivotcha, because the Eved, one of the things he doesn't, in Mishlei that he doesn't, Shlomo didn't understand, or he was worried about, was that the Eved would rule and the maidservant would conquer her mistress. So when that happens, the Shekhinah, I missed the line, the Vahu Shaita, that time when a man is not wearing tefillin when he says Kriyat Shema, the Shekhinah is angry. Why is she angry? Because she's now, God forbid, in the power of the forces of evil. She's separated from those who learn Torah, who nourish her and sustain her. And so she's angry at that moment. So now she's angry. And now the Tikkunim is going to give us an example where she's okay, so she's even more angry. Shekhinah gets even more angry. And she's even more angry on a novel, I'll explain what it means in a moment, because he's satisfied with bread. There's another verse from Mishlei. To Itma because it says of him, Lachu lachmu b'lachmi. So he takes his bread from my bread. So what's this about? Because a novel is someone who's a mean guy, a kamson, very mean. The Ihu kamson. Novel, if you remember, Novel was the husband of Abigail. And there's a whole story we'll come to when we're learning Shmuel, when David is running out from Shaul, right? And he wants some food for his men. He had 400 men with him. And Naval was a very wealthy man. He wouldn't give him anything. So Naval is known as a stingy, very stingy, mean. So that stinginess, says the Almighty, or the Shekhinah gets even more upset. And he says like this, he says, the Ihu comes from Novel, the Mamone Novel Shemei, someone who's mean and tight-fisted is called Novel. Now the Tikkunim is going to take this a stage further. To love Ihu Nadiv, because he doesn't give. He's not a Nadiv, is someone who gives, right? And a Divas Lev, he has a full heart, he wants to give. So he won't give. And he does not count the seed of the fathers. The nature of the Jewish people from Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov is that we give. Right, that's one of the fundamentals of the Jews, is that we give. So this person doesn't want to give, he doesn't give. And it is said of them, Nadive Amim Ne'asfu. So that's another pasuk from Tehillim, where of the fathers are called. The pasuk continued with the nation of the God of Abraham, and Rashi explains that they give, that they were the first people to give. That was a quality of Avraham Avinu, and Yitzhak particularly introduced the concept of giving to them. So he's not like that. But Dahar comes an ihu oni hadas. This is a mean person. He's impoverished in his das, in his nature, in his Basa de lo avid tibu lemare Torah lemahave machzik v'yudechu. Now it extends. What does this person mean? Who doesn't give? It's someone who learns Torah and he doesn't teach. He doesn't give it out. He doesn't share to other people. He just learns the Torah and keeps it for himself. And on that he says, if he doesn't give his goodness, because he's a brilliant man, he's a genius, right? But he doesn't share it with others in order that they could also join. He says, Torah without giving, teaching others, is not the Torah of Hashem. Gor talks about this as well. It's a tremendously powerful word. There's a Gemara that says this as well. Kol ha'osek b'Torah bilvad. Someone who is osek b'Torah sits, learns 22 hours a day, sits and learns. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah says, someone who is osek b'Torah bilvad, dome kamisha eino elokim. It's like someone who doesn't have a God. So now that's Zohar is telling us that the Shekhinah gets angry and upset. He gives two examples. One is when someone says Shema without feeling, because that's giving power to these other forces. And someone who's mean and stingy, not only with his money, but with his ability to learn. And he learns and he doesn't share his knowledge. It's a very strong language. It's like he doesn't have a God, if he doesn't. So now the quality therefore of the Giborim, which is the second madrega, the second level of the shaman, of his higher intellect, is that they give power and strength to the force of goodness, because they are powerful and strong, and that entails giving. It doesn't just entail being strong or powerful. It's giving. So a gibor is someone who gives. So that was the second level. So now we come to the third level, Mare Torah. So the masters of Torah, people who are masters of Torah, they come from the middle. They come from the middle pillar. Because as I said before in the analogy, so the spheres have a right side, a left side, and a middle, right? And the middle aspect, this was called Chesed, this is called Gevurah, and the middle aspect is called Tiferet. Tiferet means spiritual. I like to translate it better, spiritual beauty. People call it beauty, but it's not beauty in the ordinary sense. It's spiritual beauty, right? Tiferet means spiritual beauty. And spiritual, what's spiritual beauty? The Torah is spiritual beauty, right? We open a sefer and we learn, and we're aware of spiritual beauty. It floods the room where we learn. So they're called Moed Torah. They're in the middle pillar, and the Bei Chatzuk Laila Havida Kam David L'Chavra Le B'Shchinta V'It Karei Laila. Because in the middle of the night, Chatzot, so David HaMelech, as we know from the Gemara in Bochus, would get up in the middle of the night, right? And then he would connect the Chabele to connect with him, B'Shchinta, with the Shechina, the Itkares Laila, which is called Laila. So through the Torah, he creates a unity. The The Zohar and the Kabbalah is particularly concerned with unity, because what does the force of evil do? It causes a separation, a focus, dispute, right? The force of evil in the world causes dispute, and the force of positive goodness brings unity. And our job is to create unity. In the terms of the Kabbalah, we create unity in our davening, our learning, particularly in our davening, and particularly in the unity of divine names. I have to explain this a little bit because we're going to be concerned with it. I said before that we have different worlds, right? We think this world we live in is the only world. It's not the only world, it's the lowest world. And we said that in the scheme, let's say that we learned in the lesson, we have 5 worlds. The number 5 is a very significant number when we discuss, try to understand the conceptual aspects of creation. So we won't concern ourselves at the moment with the first 3. The 4th world is called the world of Atzilus. Atzilus is a very difficult word to explain or to translate. It's translated as emanation, but I don't think that helps us to understand it. I don't know what that means. It comes from the word Etzel means close. It's close, closer to the highest world. And that's a world which we could call Ein, which we could translate as nothing. Although we say the word nothing, but nothing is something, you know. I said before, we can't conceptualize nothing. So that world existed before Bereshis bara Elokim. When it says Bereshis bara Elokim, and the Almighty, Bereshis, He created the world. He didn't just create one world, He created 3 worlds. Those worlds are called the world of Bria. Then lower than that is the world of Yetzirah, and then lower than that is the world of Asir, in which we live. This is now Asir. All those 3 worlds were created when it says Bereshis bara Elokim. So He created those worlds. We have no concept. We can have a certain concept of the world of Yetzirah. We have a book about, say, Yetzirah, and the angels come from the world of Yetzirah. The very high soul could perhaps be conscious. A prophet can go into that world. The world, but it doesn't have it has a kind of materiality, but not the materiality that we can know about. I was explaining to someone the other day, when we talk about energy and light and things like that, people say they don't have substance. Well, they have a substance, but it's hard, and we have the ability to measure. So that's really like the world of Yetzirah. And above that is a world of Bria, which is also pure. We have no concept of what it is. Maybe Moshe Rabbeinu, when he went up to the Shemaim, entered the world of Bria, but it's the very highest thing in spiritual terms. But it still is a thing called Yesh. There is something which is there, even though we can't measure and can't conceptualize and can't touch it. It's there. Above that is the world of Atzilus, which is called Ein, which is, so far as we know, is nothing. I mean, it doesn't mean it's nothing, but it's nothing in our terms, whatever that means. So now the Almighty, when He created that revealed that world of Atzilus, He revealed that through the divine name. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which we don't know. So in brief, that means that when the Almighty world into being, as we know, He brings it through letters, right? The whole world is created from letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So the Almighty chose to reveal himself in that higher world in the name of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which is a divine name, representing those meters, those qualities that we find in that higher world. Now, when we come down to the lower worlds of Bria, so then he reveals himself in a different way. He reveals himself, it says, Veracious Bar Elokim. So that means Elokim, that quality of Elokim, that need of Elokim revealed itself in the lower world. So in the lower world, we have two names. We have Elokim and we have Adonai, I call it. Okay. So they represent, in a way, the two aspects that the Almighty reveals himself. He reveals himself as the creator of everything, right? He creates everything. That's Elokim. And he runs everything. Dynamic, right? Other people are aware that God is the creator, but they think he created the world and then he left it up to us to run it, right? It's a common fallacy. But we know that's not so. He runs the world. He created it on the one hand and he runs it on the other. So we usually say the name Elokim is that which you create, and Adonai is the name which you want. So now we have to understand this because we're talking about unity. So when we say, for example, in Kriyat Shema, so it says Shema Yisrael Hashem. We say Hashem, but the letters are four letters, right? Yud, and then I don't like to say Hey, so it's a K, and then Vav, and another K, right? But we don't try to pronounce that. How do we say that word? We say that word as Adonai, right? But it's not, that's not a literal way that you would say that word, right? That word is not it's not spelled Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud, it's spelled differently. So that means that Hashem in the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is a higher aspect, and then he comes down to the world in this lower aspect. And what we have to try to do is to unite these two things. So one way we unite them is because we say it, we see it's written in one way, and we say it in another way. So that in itself is a unification. But in the Kabbalah, kinds of Kabbalahs, and if you look into Kavanas, intentions, if you look into the Sfadi Siddur, for example, have both names put together, and in the Kabbalah, one is supposed, when we say that name, to try to visualize the two words. In other words, when we daven and say that word, we try to visualize both the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei and also underneath that, yeah. So that's a whole aspect of what's called unification. Many people say, well, those who don't know, in fact, those who don't know what they're doing and they're very difficult things, it's better not to get into that, just to do the simple thing. But at the same time, that represents, what does that unification mean? That unification means that we understand that there is a unity between these higher worlds, which are hidden from us, but are revealed to us to some extent, and the lower world. We have to see they're not unrelated, you know. It's not that there's God and the heavens are all over here. This is like a lot of, like the Greeks, etc., that they think, well, the gods are all playing in their worlds and people are living down here. There's not much connection between them. No, we know that they're totally connected. Everything that happens in this world happens in the higher world, and at the same time, what we do here in the lower world affects what's happening in the higher world. So we have to try to make a connection. So now the Tikkunim are telling us that that's what David HaMelech does. When David HaMelech gets up at Chatzot to learn, so what he was doing was connecting these two worlds. That's why, Kam David lechaborale, to unite, it says. To unite and connect the Amping, which is the sod of Torah, because That goes in the higher world, right? In this world of Atzilus, Torah is revealed there. So unites the higher world where the Torah is with the world of Shekhinah, which is the manifestation of the divine in this world. So he combines the two things, because the Shekhinah is called Laila, because one of the reasons it says because Leil Shimurim, it's a night. In Hebrew language, Rabbi Yakov will know, sometimes we have a male form and a female form which are related. You say Leil is night, which is the masculine form, and you say Lila, which is the female form, right? Called Leil Shmurim, right? It's a night when things are guarded. And it says Lila, he says, is Leil Hashem. Hey, Lamed Yud Lamed. Hey, Lila, the female aspect, is Leil, which night means Leil is night of the Almighty. So the idea of Lila, the concept of Lila, is it's the night of the Almighty. It's the Almighty's night. It's Leil Hashem. So that's why it says that when the David got up in the middle of the night, he was united, bringing the concept of the masculine aspect of night together with the female aspect, which is Hashem. And that's why they say all those who are osek and learn Torah at night, HaKodesh Baruch Hu Moshech Alav Chut Shel Chesed Bayom. Anyone who learns Torah by night, the Almighty draws a thread of chesed on the day. We said today, remember that we said that there's one aspect. The world, all the world that we know, it's just the Almighty takes a thread of chesed, and he weaves the whole world, the whole universe, what happened, what is happening, what in the future will happen. It's all a weaving, a tapestry that the Almighty does from a strain of chesed. And anyone who learns Torah at night, Hashem, the Almighty, pulls from that learning a thread of chesed on the daytime. He said, because there's a pasuk, we always bring psukim to support it. Shenema Yomam Yitzaveh Hashem Chasto Uvalayla Shira Imam. So he says, someone who learns Torah at night with a voice of song and rima of joy. Shir, song, is the highest praise that a man can give to the Almighty. It's Shir, song. That's why the spontaneous Shir Ayam, right? We came out of Egypt. The sea split before us so spontaneously. We give praise to Hashem. Okay, so that was the third level. The fourth and the fifth are Chozim and Nevi'im, which is the side of Netzach and Hod. It's a question, as I say. Some say it's Nevi'im and Chozim because Nevi'im are prophets and Chozim are visionaries. So a Navi, the Almighty speaks to a Navi, right? But a Chozeh doesn't have that Nevi'ah, but he sees things. Daniel, for example. Daniel is not considered a prophet, he's considered a Chozeh, a visionary. He sees and understands what he wasn't. So that's why some people some of the interpreters prefer to put the Nevi'im before the Chozim because that's how, but they are Netzach and Hod. So Netzach and Hod again, he says in the names that Netzach represents the divided name of Yochai, and Hod is the name of Adonai. But they're really like the legs. A man stands on his legs, right? that's where the support is. So in the analogy in the higher world, the Netzach and Hod are like the pillars which support the whole construct. And what he's now telling us is that these two things now represent the divine names that I was talking about before, the Yud-K, Vov-K, and the Yodoni, in the way that they are put together, which means you have Yud, Aleph, Dalet, Vav, Nun, and Yud. They're Shula, they're interlaced, right? The names are interlaced. And they have 8 letters. They have 8 letters because even though the Chazon are not exactly prophets, but they're like prophets. So why do they have 8 letters? Because through them we receive there are 8 books of Nevi'im, of the prophets. The 8 books of the prophets of Yeshua, Shoftim, Shmuel, Malachim is 4, Yeshayahu 5, Yirmiyahu 6, Yecheskel 7, and the Tikunei HaZohar 13, and considered as one, that's 8. So there are 8 books of prophecy, and then when it says Nevi'im, they are another 2, because Nevi'im is plural, which means 2. So they comes to 10, and they receive the 10 Sfirot. And if you look at the book of Yecheskel, at the beginning he saw 8 visions. It talks about 10 visions. So therefore the Netzach and Hod, who are the prophets and the visionaries, they are the source that receives from the higher level the 10 spheres, and they bring them out through the world, and that's also represented through the 10 books of prophets and the 10 visions that Yecheskel, prophecies that Yecheskel saw. And then the 6th and last level are the tzaddikim, right? So the tzaddikim comes from the tzaddik, right? A tzaddik is a righteous person. So who is the great tzaddik? Who represents tzidkus, righteousness? That's Yosef. Yosef HaTzaddik, right? We always call Yosef HaTzaddik because he was righteous. His righteousness protected him, and it particularly manifested in the relationship between the wife of Potiphar, right? Who wants to seduce him. And he resists him. When the Almighty tests David HaMelech, he told him, well, you know the story. The Gemara explains the story. David HaMelech complains to Kadosh Baruch Hu. He says, why do you say, okay, Avram Yitzhak Yaakov? Why didn't you say God of David? He's not, God forbid, being conceited. He's asking, I represent kingship. And you've made me the king, so why do you exclude me? Why should I be part? It shouldn't be a triumvirate, it should be for 4 of us, the David as well. So the Almighty says to him, well, I'll tell you why you're not included. Because I gave them a test. Well, the Gemara starts, a man should never ask a test. He says, I gave them a test and they stood up to it. So David says, oh, give me a test. I'll also stand up to it. The Gemara in Sanhedrin. So the Almighty says, no, I'll give you a test, you're going to fail it. And he says, I'll tell you in advance the test, and you're still going to fail it. He says, I'm going to give you a test in aras, in sexual attraction. Now David HaMelech didn't have a Yetzer Hara. He was born without the Yetzer Hara, but all of a sudden it's flooded with this physical Yetzer. And it says immediately after he said this, he gets up from his bed and he sees Bathsheba in the roof, and we know that. But Yosef, the tzaddik, resisted and overcame it. So that's why He's called Yosef Tzaddik, and there's also a whole very sexual aspect to this because that Tzidkus is called the Yesod. The Yesod is the foundation. So the Yesod, or the foundation of a man, is the sexual organ in that sense, that it's like in that body. And what is a tzaddik? And a tzaddik is someone who preserves his righteousness, particularly in matters of sexual behavior. That's Yosef, right? Yeah, he's in prison, he hasn't seen, he's a poet, and she's this beautiful woman. He controls it, and he's at the foundation. So that's the foundation. In the Kabbalah, the Yesod is the foundation. That's the Yesod. That's the foundation. The foundation of what? Of righteousness is someone who overcomes sexual aberration, and he stands firm and strong like a foundation. So those are the tzaddikim. They come from the side of the tzaddik, and that's why in this whole thing it says, "Lo tikach ha'em al habanim." Do not take the mother. You can't take the mother away from the sons, or it's not possible because the mother is the Shekhinah, and all these righteous, different levels of righteous souls are her sons, and because of their righteousness, and because of their chesed and their gevurah, and the Torah and all these other midas, and they bring down the spheres of the foundation of righteousness, they are inseparable from the Shekhinah, so that when, God forbid, the Shekhinah goes into exile, as it does so often in our history, and has happened to Rabbi Shimon. Of course, it's no coincidence that this has all been written by Rabbi Shimon, who had to go into exile and run away from the Romans and lived in the cave. But as long as he maintains his righteousness, study of Torah and all these other qualities, so the Shekhinah is inseparable from us. That's what keeps us going, and has kept us going throughout the period of exile. Let's learn a little bit more. A couple of other little pieces now. Va'od ilan da'askin v'rais l'shma. And further, these righteous men, they learn Torah l'shma. What does it mean, l'shma? The Shema is L'Shem Hashem. They are learning Torah for Hashem, for the Hay, which is the Shekhinah, in order to unite the Torah with the Almighty. In a simple way, I would say that, of course, it means, in the sense that someone learns Torah for the sake of learning Torah, and not in order. There are two levels, the Gemara says. Someone who learns Torah, lo lishma, not for the purpose of Hashem, one says it's better off if you've never been born, right? But there's also Gemara says you should always learn Torah lo lishma, because when you're learning lo lishma, you'll come to learn lishma. So there are two kinds of lo lishma. One is you're learning Torah because you want to be a rabbi, or because you want people to give you respect, or you think it looks very nice, you wear a nice long coat, and people look up to you. So that kind of lo lishma, it says, well, that's all right, because when you learn from that, the nature of Torah, the beauty of Torah, you'll come to appreciate it, and you'll go on to the higher level. But if you learn lo lishma in order to be clever, so you can knock people down, there are people, God forbid, who learn not for the purpose of seeing the beauty and the wisdom of the Almighty, but so that they can be smart and clever and knock people down and use it as an axe or a hammer to hit people over the head with. So those people said it'd be better off if they were never born. And Kotzker Rabbi says, it says, La'olam, you should learn Torah, no lishma, so you'll come to learn lishma. He says that means everyone has to be in it. So don't think that you're already at that level that you're learning purely for divine, you're always aware, but you've always got to move and try. So the Tikunei now explain that learning Lo Lishma means you're learning because the Torah is divine, and when we learn Torah, we are giving strength to the higher worlds. We're giving strength to the Almighty. He's learning Torah in the same way. It says if you learn someone's Torah, the Torah of someone who dies, so his lips move in the grave, right? There's a good one. You learn Rabbi Akiva Eiger, piece of Rabbi Akiva Eiger. So Rabbi Akiva Eiger, in his careful, it's saying the words over with you. As you're learning his Torah, it's saying it over. So it gives a power, gives a strength to the divine. So these people, these righteous souls who are learning Torah Lishma, and they are keeping the mitzvahs, which are the Torah of mitzvahs, 613 mitzvahs, which depend on the divine name. They're like the grapes, which are in a cluster of grapes. And they're learning that. When we're learning Torah Lishma, we're again causing a unity. We're able to create a unity with the Almighty, which is a Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which is this male aspect. Ze'amkin with the Shekhinah. So we'll stop there, and next time we'll go through this. Okay.